But many of you are wondering, what voice do I write in? Before we can talk about how to write in proper English, we need to define what proper English is. Because if you ask somebody from Texas, we speak proper English, even though we drop our G's on fixin' and other types of slang that we have. But I also have some friends from Great Britain who will tell you, you know those people from Cornwall, they don't speak proper English. And the people from Devonshire, they don't speak proper English. And then you also have Australian English, Canadian English. So what is proper English? Well, that's for you to decide based on a couple of factors when you're deciding to write your family history. When you are drafting your stories, write however you talk. Because the last thing you want to do when you are writing a family history is keep your knowledge stuck inside of your head. And so you need to write however you talk. In fact, in a previous video, I talked about using voice to text on Google so you can write your stories. The drafting phase is not the phase to worry about what format or what type of English that you should be using. So after you have drafted your family's story, you've got it out of your head and put it onto a screen, then let's go ahead and consider what proper English should be. And this is when we start in one of the first of 5 phases of editing your story. Be sure to check in the description of this video to a link to the 5 stages of improving your family stories by editing. So the developmental stage is when you start making decisions. And once you've made a few decisions, then you're going to know what style of English to write in. You need to first decide who is your audience. Who are you writing for? Now that you've gotten everything out of your mind and onto a screen, who are you going to make this information available to? So some of the decisions that you need to make is, are you writing for children? Well, how much proper English do you need for a children's story? You need very casual language when you're writing a children's story. When you're writing for a teenage and emerging reader, you're going to step up the amount of formality that you may introduce into your writing, but you may still keep it a little casual because remember, it's family history, and sometimes those teenagers don't want to have a scholarly book to read. They already have plenty of textbooks. So you're going to have to make that decision. Okay, if I'm writing for my teenage and children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews, then I'm going to have to choose a different tone, the different style of writing. And then finally, when you're writing for adults, you still have to decide, am I going to be formal? Am I going to be informal? Even if I am formal, am I going to be scholastic or scholarly or trying to write an academic paper? Because once you decide on those decisions in your developmental editing stage of your story, that's going to go a long way to helping you decide what format that you want to write your final product in. So many people dream of writing the big book. And I have no qualms with writing a big book. When you write in the big book, well, many people are going to be using that very formal writing format. You'll see things according to, as this sample from one of my participants in a recent writing workshop, that participant said, according to this source, I got this information, and they're going to be writing very scholarly. It's not necessarily going to be a book that you really want to read on the beach unless you're really into academic stories. But this is not something that a child would appreciate. It's not something a teenager will likely appreciate. And that's okay if you're trying to write towards this particular audience. Now, if you're trying to write something for a more general audience, you can do a couple of things. The first thing is you can take out a lot of those formal citations and just write your story. And if it is according to a specific record, then just have a little footnote or endnote demarcation so that somebody can go look at the citation when they're finished reading your story or as they're reading along. But you don't clutter up the writing with what you referenced, how you came up with the research knowledge and processed all that information. You're just telling a story. The other way is to be very, very casual. You are telling the story of your father or mother or aunt or grandma, and you're just telling in your own voice very casually because you want your relatives to come and appreciate them. So once you finally decided who you are writing for, the next step is to figure out, well, how do I actually get to that point? Well, that's when I'm going to recommend that we go and use a service called Grammarly. So let me switch to Grammarly. Actually, I'm starting in Google Drive. So in Google Drive, I write a lot of my stories, and this is the one that I'm hoping by the end of 2020 I can publish my next story, and this one is about my Civil War ancestor, and his name is William James Townsend. So there's two ways you can actually get access to improving your writing with Grammarly. The first way is you can copy and paste your story over into Grammarly. Now, I'm just going to give it up here at this top spot right here. I'm just going to give it a title, William James. James. Because when I go back, I'm going to actually save everything. Got to save things. Got to slow down. My kids always yell at me that I go too fast on the computer. And the reason why you're giving them a title is because when you have a lot of files that you're using, then you want to be able to quickly reference it. It's not that it's a permanent title. However, if you want to do a permanent title, Grammarly will also check it as well. So as I copy and paste my story over here, I'm going to skip this because this is just, I'm writing this. I'm still writing this. And this is notes to me to tell me, hey, go back and look at that information and add more social history to my story. So I'm going to keep copying all of this information that I wrote, and I'm going to go over to Grammarly. And you notice Grammarly is already marking things up. It looks for spelling, it looks for punctuation, it looks for all sorts of syntax errors that may take place in your story. But the thing that I definitely want to highlight, if I can, is that you can use Grammarly to set your goals. So remember I said in developmental editing, you need to choose what audience you're writing for. Once you do that, Grammarly is a great first step to try to edit towards that voice. So you can write for a general audience. That's when you're writing for young children, you're writing for teenagers, or for those family members who really aren't into family history. You have the the general audience. You can step this up a little bit and be more knowledgeable, more informative, or you can go to expert, and you would choose something like that if you're trying to write a more academic type of paper. You can choose your formality. You can write informal, very casual, or you can go all the way to formal or something in the middle. The other thing you're going to be able to set is what domain would you put this in? Is this an academic paper? Again, we're thinking this genealogical journals that we may want to submit our writing to. Well, then we're going to put this in on academic. We can do business. I don't know that you would do a lot of business writing in your family history, but you could. Again, they have casual, they creative. You can go through all of these settings, your tone, neutral, confident, joyful, optimistic, respectful, and what is your intent? Are you trying to inform? Are you trying to describe, or are you trying to tell a story? Once you make all of those different choices, you can click done, and now Grammarly is going to go through and give you suggestions based on that style of writing. What other techniques do you use in order to help you write in a more formal tone? I hope that you will tell me in the chat in the few minutes we have together, and if you're watching the replay, let's have a discussion in the comments section. My final point that I want to talk about is making sure that you write in your own voice. So if you are writing about your grandmother and why you named your daughter after her, make sure you tell stories in your voice. And then if you are capturing that ancestor in the way they talked or the way they spoke, then make sure you're capturing their voice and you're not recreating dialogue for them. I have another video that you're going to want to check the description for a link to that about maybe you shouldn't add dialogue to your stories if you are creating them. Okay, Gay. Gay asked, how can I speak instead of write? I am going to drop a link to that video after we get done here, and then it will show you how to do that rather than put it in this video, and then I just have too many of the same pieces of content out there. But hang on tight, and I'll get that to you. Oh. So our friend from Iowa was 21 years of teaching made me a grammar guru. Horrible when I got started. Now a comment out of place drives you nuts. I can understand. But remember, you have that talent. You have that gift of knowing how to properly format the structure and the mechanics of your words, but don't let that prevent you from connecting with your audience through choosing in the developmental editing stage after you write a rough draft to choose the right audience, write towards them at that stage, and then go ahead and mark up and correct the writing as you need to. And so you probably wouldn't use Grammarly. We could all probably send you some of our samples. Just kidding. That would be overwhelming. Well, you guys, I am going to wrap things up early today simply because, like I said, I haven't been sleeping. Insomnia is something I struggle with. But I hope that this was a beneficial video for you. Be sure to check the description when this video is over for links to some of the resources I mentioned. If I forget anything, just kindly remind me in the comment section and I'll make sure I get that to you. Be sure to check out any of our new videos. They will pop up on the screen. The first video will likely be the playlist for more tips on how to write, and the second option will be our latest video. Thanks so much. See you next time.